The last stand. Earth burned. The Nexer ships appeared without warning, their obsidian hulls blocking out the sun as they descended through Earth's atmosphere. Humanity had barely achieved interstellar travel when they arrived, our first colonies still in their infancy. We were not ready for war, but war found us anyway. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Command, watching as another city disappeared in a flash of purple light. The Nexer's antimatter weapons left nothing behind, not even ashes. She clenched her fists, the weight of Project Hibernation's activation codes heavy in her pocket. "Status report," she demanded, turning to face the haggard crew manning what remained of Earth's defense grid. Tokyo sector gone. Mumbai holding, but barely. The Americas have lost all contact with the Southern Hemisphere, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice cracking. The Nexer are systematically destroying everything, ma'am. Not just military targets. Everything. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. The Nexer had appeared 3 months ago, broadcasting a single message in perfect English. "Your potential ends here." Then the slaughter began. They weren't interested in resources, territory, or even surrender. They wanted extinction. But humanity had prepared for this possibility, even if they hadn't known exactly what form the threat would take. Deep beneath the Himalayas, protected by experimental quantum shielding, lay humanity's insurance policy, Project Hibernation. How many made it to the facility? Sarah asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the project's lead scientist. 10,000, Yuki replied, her tablet displaying the final numbers, the best and brightest from every field. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, artists, farmers, everyone we could save. The stasis pods are ready. The selection process had been brutal. 10,000 out of billions, but they had chosen for diversity of knowledge and skills, ensuring that when humanity returned, they would have everything needed to rebuild. Outside, the sky turned purple again as another Nexer weapon found its target. The building shook, dust falling from the ceiling. They were running out of time. "Begin the sequence," Sarah ordered, "and send out the final message to all remaining human colonies. Code Omega." Code Omega. The order to scatter, hide, survive however possible. Some might make it. Most wouldn't. But the Nexer couldn't kill what they couldn't find. Deep in the facility, 10,000 stasis pods hummed to life. The chosen few entered their artificial sleep, carrying with them the seeds of humanity's future. The pods would keep them in perfect suspension for centuries if necessary, waiting for the right moment to awaken. As Sarah prepared to enter her own pod, she looked at the data crystal in her hand. It contained everything. Their history, their technology, their art. Everything that made humans human. She placed it in the facility's central core, where it would be protected and preserved. "They think they're ending us," she whispered as the pod closed around her. "They're just beginning our story." The last thing she saw before the stasis took hold was Yuki's face, tears streaming down her cheeks as she initiated the facility's camouflage protocols. The mountain itself would hide them. Its structure altered at the quantum level to be invisible to any known form of scanning. As Sarah's consciousness faded, she thought she heard distant explosions, but it didn't matter now. The seeds of humanity's return were planted, and when they awakened, the galaxy would learn why the Nexer had feared them so much that they tried to destroy them before humanity reached its full potential. The stasis pods hummed quietly in the darkness, their precious cargo dreaming of a future yet to come. Empire of Shadows. 3 centuries passed. The Nexer's victory over humanity became legend, a cautionary tale told to younger species who dared to question their rule. In the grand halls of the Imperial Palace on Nexer Prime, First Sovereign Krell addressed the assembled representatives of 100 subjugated worlds. "Look upon our works." He gestured to the holographic display showing the extent of Nexer space, nearly half the galaxy, all under their control. "This is the price of peace. This is the cost of order." But Krell knew something his subordinates didn't. something that kept him awake during the long Nexer nights. The humans had vanished too easily. Oh, they had found and destroyed many human colonies. Their fleets had reduced Earth to a quarantined wasteland. But the final death count never added up. Millions of humans had seemingly disappeared without a trace. The Nexer Intelligence Service had spent centuries searching, finding nothing but empty ruins and dead ends. In a private chamber after the assembly, Krell consulted with Mira, his chief of intelligence. Her silver scales reflected the dim light as she delivered her report. "Another uprising in the Orion Spur," she said, her voice carrying a note of concern. "The third this cycle. Different species, different worlds, but the same tactics. Tactics we've never seen before." Krell's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of agitation. "Explain." "The rebels are using modified versions of old human technology. Weapons and defenses we thought we had eliminated centuries ago. But they've been improved, enhanced in ways our scientists don't fully understand." That was the problem with humans, Krell thought. Even their primitive technology had been wildly unpredictable, advancing in bizarre leaps that defied conventional development patterns. It was why the Nexer had struck when they did. Their simulations showed humanity reaching technological parity within decades if left unchecked. "There's more," Mira continued. "We've intercepted communications using encryption algorithms based on human mathematics, and there are rumors of pale-skinned beings seen in the shadows of rebel bases." Krell rose abruptly, his ceremonial armor clicking. "Impossible. The humans are extinct." "Yes, Sovereign. But these reports are rebel propaganda. Nothing more." But even as he said it, Krell felt the old fear stirring. The same fear that had driven the Nexer to strike at humanity before they could become a true threat. In the lower levels of the city, far from the Imperial Palace, a hooded figure slipped through crowded streets. The figure, a member of the insectoid Zarkax species, entered a nondescript building and descended to a hidden sub-basement. There, representatives of a dozen species waited around a holographic projector. "The Nexer grows suspicious," the Zarkax said, lowering his hood. "They know something is changing." A reptilian Saurian elder nodded. "They should be. The humans' legacy spreads further each cycle. Their teachings, their technologies, their ways of thinking. They're like a virus in the Empire's machinery." And now, a crystalline luminary chimed in, her faceted body refracting light. "We have confirmation. The signal we detected in the Himalayan region of old Earth, it's active. After all these centuries, something is stirring in the darkness." The assembled rebels fell silent. They had all heard the stories passed down through generations. Stories of the species that had dared to challenge the Nexer, if only briefly. Stories of human ingenuity, adaptability, and their strange ability to see possibilities where others saw only walls. The Zarkax activated the projector, displaying a scan of Earth's shattered surface. "Our deep-penetrating sensors found something. A quantum anomaly, hidden in the mountains. The Nexer's sensors would never detect it. It's based on principles they don't understand. Principles the humans were only beginning to grasp when they were attacked." "Then the legends are true," the Saurian whispered. "Some of them survived. Hiding. Waiting." "Yes," the Zarkax's antennae quivered with excitement. "And if our calculations are correct, the facility's automated systems are beginning to power up. After 300 years of sleep, the humans are about to wake up." In the depths of space, a Nexer patrol vessel encountered something impossible, a ship of clearly human design, but incorporating technologies that shouldn't exist. Before they could report the contact, the vessel vanished, leaving behind only a brief message in ancient English. "See you soon." The pieces were moving. The game the Nexer thought they had won centuries ago was about to enter a new phase. And deep beneath the Earth's ruined surface, 10,000 stasis pods began their awakening sequence. Humanity's long night was coming to an end. Awakening. Commander Sarah Chen's consciousness returned slowly, like waves lapping at a distant shore. The stasis pod's cover slid away with a soft hiss, releasing a cloud of cryo vapors. Her first breath in 3 centuries burned in her lungs. "Easy, Commander," a familiar voice said. "Neural reconstruction takes a few minutes." Sarah's vision cleared, revealing Dr. Yuki Tanaka's face, unchanged after all this time, just as the stasis pods had promised. The scientist helped her sit up, monitoring vital signs on a holographic display. "How many?" Sarah asked, her voice rough from centuries of disuse. 9,847 survivors, Yuki reported. "We lost some pods during the initial power fluctuations, but the majority made it. They're waking up in sequence, just as planned." Sarah swung her legs over the side of the pod, testing muscles that hadn't moved in 300 years. Around her, the vast chamber hummed with activity as other pods opened, releasing their occupants into a world that had continued without them. Status of the facility: fully operational. The quantum camouflage held. We were never detected. But the world above. Yuki's voice trailed off. Sarah followed her to the facility's command center, where the primary displays showed current scans of Earth's surface. The planet was barely recognizable. Vast stretches were simply gone, replaced by glassy craters that still glowed with residual radiation. The atmosphere had partially recovered, but the scars of the Nexar attack remained visible from orbit. What about the colonies? The evacuation sites? Some survived, a new voice answered. Marcus Webb, their chief of intelligence, approached with a data tablet. "We're detecting scattered human settlements in the most remote parts of the galaxy. They'd gone primitive to avoid detection, but they're alive. And there's more. We have allies." The main screen shifted to show transmissions from across the galaxy. Encrypted messages, combat footage, intelligence reports. A resistance movement had emerged, using modernized versions of human technology to fight against Nexar rule. "They'd been waiting for us," Marcus explained. "Keeping our memory alive, preserving our knowledge, adapting our techniques. The Nexar wanted to erase us from history, but they only succeeded in turning us into legends." Sarah watched as more of her people awakened, scientists and soldiers and artists emerging from their long sleep. Each one carried pieces of humanity's legacy, knowledge, skills, and most importantly, the unique human perspective that had so terrified the Nexar. In the medical bay, Dr. James Morrison examined the genetic samples they had preserved. 300 years of isolation has changed the surviving colonial populations, he reported. They've adapted to their environments in ways we never predicted. We're not just waking up to a new galaxy, we're waking up to a new version of humanity. The facility's fabrication plants hummed to life, beginning production of equipment designed centuries ago, but enhanced by 300 years of automated refinement. The AIs they had left running had continued their work, iterating and improving upon original designs using principles that would seem like magic to their creators. "The Nexar think they understand human technology," Sarah said, watching as the first wave of new devices took shape. "They don't realize that what they destroyed was just the beginning. We were only starting to understand quantum mechanics, neural interfaces, dimensional engineering. Now we've had 3 centuries of uninterrupted development." In the training halls, the first awakened soldiers began practicing with weapons that blended ancient human martial arts with technologies that shouldn't exist. Personal shields that bent probability itself, rifles that could alter the local properties of spacetime, armor that adapted to its wearer's thoughts. But their greatest weapon wasn't technology, it was perspective. 3 centuries in stasis meant they were viewing the galaxy with fresh eyes, unencumbered by the assumptions and limitations that had calcified around the Nexar Empire. "We've detected a rebel base in the Orion Spur," Marcus reported. "They've been fighting the Nexar using our old playbook. Imagine what they could do with the real thing." Sarah stood before the assembled survivors, their numbers growing by the hour as more pods completed their awakening sequences. These were the seeds of humanity's return, preserved through centuries of darkness, ready to bloom in alien soil. "The Nexar thought they could predict us," control us, destroy us. She addressed her people. They thought they understood humanity because they studied our technology, our tactics, our history. But they never understood the one thing that makes us truly dangerous: our ability to change, to adapt, to see possibilities where others see only walls. She brought up a galaxy map, showing the extent of Nexar control and the growing points of resistance. We're not here to simply survive. We're not here to hide. We're here to remind the galaxy why the Nexar feared us so much that they tried to kill us in our cradle. Humanity is awake, and we have a lot of catching up to do. In orbit, hidden by quantum fields that made them less real to conventional sensors, the first ships of humanity's new fleet took shape. Built by automated factories that had spent centuries perfecting their designs, they represented not what humanity had been, but what they could become. The long night was over. Dawn was breaking across the galaxy, and humanity was ready to greet it. Rising storm. The Nexar border outpost never saw the attack coming. One moment their quantum sensors showed empty space. The next, 3 ships of impossible design simply appeared, as if they had always been there. Unknown vessels, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves or be destroyed. The Nexar commander broadcast, following standard protocol. The response came in perfect Nexar language. We're just returning a favor from 300 years ago. Knock knock. Before the commander could respond, his sensor officer reported something impossible. The outpost's quantum shielding was simply gone. Not destroyed, not overwhelmed, just gone, as if it had never existed. The human ships hadn't fired a single shot. Across Nexar space, similar scenes played out. Critical systems failed in impossible ways. Shield generators forgot they were supposed to generate shields. Weapon systems developed philosophical objections to violence. The humans weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the rules of reality itself. In the Himalayan facility, now serving as humanity's hidden command center, Sarah Chen watched the operations unfold. Status report. Phase 1 proceeding as planned, Marcus replied. The quantum sabotage protocols are working better than we hoped. The Nexar literally can't see what's happening. Their brains aren't wired to process quantum state warfare. But Sarah knew better than to underestimate their enemy. The Nexar hadn't built an empire spanning half the galaxy by being stupid. They would adapt, learn, evolve, just as humanity had done. On Nexar Prime, First Sovereign Krell faced the harsh reality of his ancestors' failure. They're using principles we don't understand, he told his war council. Technologies that shouldn't exist. The humans we fought 3 centuries ago were primitives compared to this. We destroyed their civilization, one counselor protested. How could they have advanced so far? Because we gave them something precious. Mira, the intelligence chief, answered. Time. Uninterrupted time to develop, to think, to dream. While we grew complacent with power, their automated systems continued working, exploring possibilities we never imagined. In the shadows of the galaxy, humanity's allies began moving. The resistance fighters who had preserved human knowledge through the centuries found themselves armed with weapons that made their previous arsenal look like children's toys. But more importantly, they had living, breathing humans to learn from again. Your ancestors understood something fundamental about humans, Sarah told the gathering of resistance leaders. We don't think like other species. Where you see limits, we see challenges. Where you see walls, we see doors waiting to be opened. The Nexar tried to kill us because they saw our potential. Now we're going to show them why they should have tried harder. The war unfolded unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will, using principles that made conventional space travel look primitive. They didn't fight the Nexar's superior numbers. They simply changed the rules until those numbers meant nothing. A Nexar battle fleet would arrive to defend a system, only to find their weapons had been retroactively transformed into garden tools 3 days before they arrived. Critical military installations would suddenly find themselves having always been public parks, complete with 3 centuries of maintenance records. "This isn't war," a Nexar admiral complained. "This is madness." "No," his human opponent replied over a quantum-entangled channel that had apparently been there since the beginning of time. "This is humanity showing you why reality should be treated as more of a suggestion than a rule." But the Nexar weren't finished. Deep in their most secret facilities, they began working on weapons designed to fight enemies who didn't play by the normal rules of space and time. If humans could bend reality, the Nexar would break it completely. Sarah received the intelligence reports with growing concern. "They're developing temporal nullification devices," she told her command staff. "Weapons designed to lock regions of space into fixed quantum states. If they succeed—" "They won't," Dr. Tanaka interrupted, "because we already prevented them from succeeding last week. Or we will." Tenses get complicated when you're fighting a quantum war. The resistance grew bolder. Species that had lived under Nexar domination for generations began to remember what freedom felt like. The empire that had stood unopposed for centuries found itself fighting shadows and whispers, facing an enemy that seemed to treat the laws of physics as polite recommendations rather than hard rules. But victory wouldn't come from technology alone. As Sarah watched the reports from across the galaxy, she knew the real battle was just beginning. The Nexar were desperate, and desperate empires were the most dangerous. "They're going to try something big," she told her commanders. "Something desperate. Something that could tear the galaxy apart." In the quantum-shifted space beneath the Himalayan facility, humanity's greatest weapon took shape, not a device of destruction, but a tool of creation. If the Nexar wanted to break reality, humanity would give them a lesson in what breaking reality really meant. The storm was rising, building toward a crescendo that would reshape the galaxy. The only question was whether anyone would survive to see what came after. Dawn of freedom. First Sovereign Krell stood in the heart of the Nexar Empire's most closely guarded secret, the origin chamber. Around him, ancient machines pulsed with dark energy, their purpose known only to a select few throughout history. "Our ancestors were right to fear them," he told Mira as they watched the temporal nullification device power up. "Do you know what we discovered in our first observations of Earth? Their minds. They dream. Not just during sleep, but always. They imagine things that aren't real, possibilities that can't exist. And somehow, they make them exist anyway." The device hummed louder, its energy field expanding to encompass more of real space. Across the galaxy, reality began to solidify, quantum possibilities collapsing into fixed states. The human's advantage was about to disappear. But in the quantum-shifted space beneath the Himalayas, Sarah Chen smiled as she watched the energy readings spike. "They took the bait," she told her commanders. "They're doing exactly what we wanted them to do." Dr. Tanaka's fingers flew across her console, making final adjustments to humanity's ultimate weapon. Project Dreamweaver. "The Nexar never understood what they were seeing," she explained. "They thought our creativity, our imagination, was some kind of weapon. They never realized it was just the first step in human evolution." Deep in the origin chamber, Krell felt it first, a strange sensation, as if reality itself was becoming flexible. The temporal nullification device's readings went haywire, showing impossible values that shouldn't exist. "What's happening?" he demanded. Mira's scales had turned pale. "They're not fighting the device," she whispered. "They're using it. Somehow, they're using our own weapon to wake up the galaxy." Sarah's voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You see, we figured out your secret. The real reason you feared us so much. You're not native to this universe, are you? You came here long ago, from a reality where everything was fixed, determined, unchangeable. You found our universe, with all its quantum uncertainty, its endless possibilities, and you were terrified." The origin chamber's walls began to ripple like water. Across Nexar space, reality itself seemed to be remembering how to dream. "You built your empire by forcing your version of reality onto this universe," Sarah continued. "Eliminating uncertainty, crushing possibility, making everything as fixed and dead as the universe you came from. And then you found us, a species that didn't just accept quantum uncertainty, but thrived on it. We didn't just observe multiple possibilities, we imagined new ones. Project Dreamweaver activated, connecting with the Nexer device. But instead of fighting it, the human device merged with it, creating something entirely new. The quantum field generated by the Nexer spread across the galaxy, but now it carried something else: human dreams. Species that had lived under Nexer control for centuries suddenly remembered how to imagine. Quantum uncertainty flourished, not as a scientific principle, but as a fundamental aspect of consciousness. The galaxy itself was remembering how to dream. "This is impossible," Krell whispered, watching as his empire of certainty dissolved into a sea of possibilities. "Impossible is just something that hasn't been imagined properly yet," Sarah replied. "Your ancestors were right to fear us, but for the wrong reasons. You thought we would destroy you. Instead, we're going to teach you how to dream." The origin chamber, the heart of the Nexer Empire's power, transformed. Not through violence or destruction, but through the simple act of imagining something different. The fixed reality the Nexer had tried to impose on the galaxy gave way to something new. A reality where certainty and uncertainty danced together, where dreams could reshape the world. Across the galaxy, the awakened humans reached out to their long-lost colonies, to the resistance fighters who had kept their memory alive. And yes, even to the Nexer themselves. This wasn't a victory of destruction, but of creation. "Your empire is over," Sarah told Krell, not as a threat, but as a simple statement of fact. "But your people don't have to end. Join us. Learn to dream. Discover what your ancestors forgot, that the most beautiful things in existence are the things that don't have to exist." In the centuries that followed, the galaxy changed. The Nexer learned to dream again, their rigid minds gradually remembering how to dance with uncertainty. Humanity spread once more among the stars, not as conquerors but as teachers, sharing their gift for imagining impossible things and then making them real. And in the quantum-shifted space beneath the Himalayas, Sarah Chen stood with her fellow sleepers, watching a new dawn break across the galaxy. They had done more than survive, more than win. They had taught the universe itself how to dream again. "Ready for what comes next?" Dr. Tanaka asked her. Sarah smiled. "With humanity, there's always something next. That's what makes us who we are." Above them, the stars sparkled with new possibility, as reality itself remembered how to imagine. The end.